There's 20th century cemeteries in California, in America, or when you fly over them, you can't tell if there's a difference between a cemetery or a golf course when you're flying into LA. You have hillsides that are flat marker after flat marker after flat marker, but at the same time, if you look beyond the cemetery, you see subdivisions that are the same three models over and over again. So it's very reflective of how we were living then.
I do think, though, even what I started off sort of with that idea, but when I started to spend a little more time in Pierce Brothers, I think especially it's striking at Pierce Brothers because it's so surrounded by the city. It became really obvious to me how this place forms a kind of record of what's taken place in the city, or who's considered to be important. I'm going to stop this for 1 second. This is, and by the way, I put together some images and things for that. I'll just interrupt for 1 second. For the presentation, not quite knowing what we'd be talking about, I wanted to make sure that we had material to deal with. So this section is from Tyler's website at both the Ganya Rock cemetery. This is just two parts of one park, right?
Correct. And
Fernwood in Marin, where the natural burials have been sort of innovented.
Innovented, yes.
But I was struck by, so we'll pause that for a second, but I was struck at Pierce Brothers because of its proximity to the city, and because it's got a big, pretty recent grouping of Hollywood people. As Claudia mentioned, Jack Lemmon and Rodney Dangerfield and Billy Wilder and Don Knotts. So it's like there's this kind of real relationship to the city. And when I started to put these pictures together, I mean, I had these kind of art historical ideas about how to structure the picture. I had the architecture there to look at. I would go to the park and wander around and take some pictures and start to composite things to make these compositions. Like I said, they're sort of weird. Those boxes are a funny format. They're really tall and narrow. And so, you don't have a sort of expansive cinematic picture. You have this other thing that's much more like a door. So
a portal.
Yeah, it's a portal, and you want to do things, or at least I, having kind of looked at Friedrich and Hokusai and Hiroshi and stuff, it's like you want to do things within the picture that draws someone inside and moves them around to different vantage points. There's a really interesting text. I tried to find it. I couldn't find it. It's in Delacroix's journals, where he talks about large history paintings and talks about them as if they're films, even though it's 40 years before cinema. And so he talks about like this kind of movement, from this time-based kind of movement from place to place within this picture. And I think that's really like super cool. It's by sort of having like a clever methodology to make these things. He was able to sort of find something out about the way that we look at the world that predates this like really important thing. And he's doing that because he's trying to figure out, what am I supposed to make pictures about? It's when Delacroix is doing that, it's during this time when the church isn't commissioning people to make paintings of Christ anymore. So the people want